Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back in with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series. I completely forgot to put the intro music in on this one. That's my bad. You have those funny 5 minutes sometimes where you just forget. You just forget things, don't you? Quite like I forgot that Emery shouldn't be here right now, and yet he is, and that is certainly something that we're going to be discussing in a little bit. But first things first, thank you ever so much, everyone, for tuning in to the show and joining us to talk about, first of all, Nuno, and second of all, Emery's press conference. Because believe it or not, he is still here somehow. And then we're going to get to some of your comments as well and get that all into a nice wrapped up Christmas present package, and then finally wrap up with some probably more comments in the chat box too. So let's jump straight in and talk about Nuno. Now, I tweeted out this morning a fairly, I don't want to use the word vociferous, but I think that's probably the right term. Basically, I'll read you the tweet that I put out. It says, I really do not understand how anyone can be looking at Nuno and saying they are underwhelmed. My God, how precious and arrogant have we become? This guy transformed Wolves into a team with great attacking potential and good defensive ability. Second tweet, he makes use of different systems and uses wing backs like Traore and Otto extremely well. Bellerin and Tierney would benefit hugely. He works well with new signings, even if they might not be his choice, and he is a great communicator of what he wants. Stop being so picky. Now, first things first, we don't know generally if the Nuno to Arsenal rumours have any credence behind them. I heard from the same sort of line that Emery had gone on Monday that Nuno would be the guy being basically chased by Arsenal. So Emery's not gone. So that line of things doesn't seem too legitimate right now. And Nuno is obviously not had any sort of sounding outs by the club as of yet. So make of it what you will. As Archie says in the chat, personally, he thinks that the Nuno rumours are smoke screens, which wouldn't really surprise me for someone else, maybe like Arteta, maybe someone like Emery. So in terms of that, it's here or there as to whether we think that Nuno is actually sort of a credible person that is being looked at by the club. However, that doesn't stop us from talking about the potential signature. Do we talk about managers that way? Appointment's probably the better word of these managers, and Nuno being one of them. Now, I personally, as said in that tweet, am extremely surprised to see this arrogance continue throughout the fan base. I said I'm not going to pull any punches in this, and I'm not. I think it is extremely arrogant of people to turn their nose up at a manager or a coach who's taken a club like Wolves, who, let's be honest, were going absolutely nowhere in the Championship. After they got their last relegation from the Premier League, they really didn't look like they were going to stuck in the mire of the Championship. Nuno's come in with the help of Jorge Mendes, who has brought in a fair few decent, high-quality players. But we've seen high-quality players go into Arsenal like Pepe and hasn't exactly hit the ground running. It takes a good coach to get the best out of his players, no matter how good of a quality player you have at your disposal. And Nuno has done that. He took them out of the Championship. He took them into the Premier League. And in his first Premier League season, unless I'm hugely mistaken, he got them into a European competition which matched Arsenal. He is in the same competition that Arsenal are in right now within just a single season. Now, things this season haven't been as good, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, you're in the Europa League now, which means you've got that extra responsibility. They had to qualify as well and go through some of those qualifying rounds, I believe, which also meant their season started pretty early. They haven't made a plethora of signings this season, it's fair to say. They haven't strengthened like a lot of their rivals, and they are continuing with a lot of the players that they had last year. And that's fair enough. I mean, they had to sign Jimenez on a permanent as well, which was a lot of money, over £30 million, I believe. And that was a big outlay on a player. But they're still sticking with those players that have done them well, like Jota, like Moutinho, like Neves, Connor Cody. All these players that were doing really well for them last season have maintained that, and Jimenez, of course, as well, we've already mentioned, into this season. Now, people have turned around to me and said that Nuno is a defensive manager. Now, I don't really get this idea of Nuno being a defensive manager, because first off, you've got to realise that he's at a club like Wolves, which they are going to face a fair amount of competition in their games. They're not always going to dominate their games, but they've got a good amount of attacking quality, and they've also play a system which is attacking. Now, we looked at the three at the back system that he played, that Unai Emery played against Southampton, was quite defensive. I don't see that, even though that Nuno employs a system with very high attacking wide wing backs. I don't see his system anywhere near as defensive as that of Emery, because the directness and the straightforward through play and the incisive passes and the want to get the ball to Jimenez as much as possible, and Adama Traore and Johnny Castro, or Otto as he's also known, getting up that left flank, that is so much more incisive and dynamic than what we see from Emery. And I wanted to pull up some statistics. So I did a little bit of rummaging, got out the old Excel spreadsheet, as one of my mates is loving his Excel spreadsheets these days. But I pulled one out and I've made up a couple of graphs just to give you sort of the shot differential. Now, shot differential looks effectively at the difference between the shots that you have as your team against the opposition. So this is the Arsenal one from game week 1 all the way up to game week 13 against Southampton. And you can see the shots that we were taking across the board in those games. It's a lot of effort. And I did this about 10 minutes before I went live, so I couldn't put on all the different individual games and who they were against. But we know that this one at the far right-hand side is Southampton, and you can work your way back from there. Ones in particular, the one against Burnley in our second game of the season, where Burnley sort of outshone us at home, and we'd still managed to come out with a victory in that game. Still had less shots than Burnley. The Watford game was horrific. That's this match day 5 that you can see was absolutely awful. Watford had 31 shots, which is a hell of a lot more than what we had. And it's sort of been a trend that teams have been outplaying us. One of these games which we did, and one of the best games we had, was this game week 4, which was against Spurs, in which we drew 2-2. And I believe we had double the amount of shots they had. I think we had 20 or 16 shots on here, and they had half that amount, something like that. I can't really tell from this. It's just under 15. And we basically doubled that of, it was 26 shots that we had to Spurs 13. So it came out as 13 in terms of difference. And that was sort of a really positive game. Although we went 2-0 down, we reacted quite well. But from that point on, we've sort of been stuck in the mire. We had the game against Watford, followed up by a couple of games where we did outshoot our opponents. But it's been mainly about how negative as a team we're being. Now, if we have a look at Wolverhampton's shot differential under Nuno, you can see it's still not in terms of really, really positive. Now, there are some mitigating circumstances here. You have to remember that this is Wolves. They're a team that aren't exactly going to be dominating every single week that they play. But what you should notice is that we've got a much less or much more controlled end of their differential as of that compared to Arsenal's. Now, it would be very, contradictory of me to just ignore the fact that you can see there that Wolves are conceding more shots in more games than they are getting more positive shots against their opponent. But one of those games was against Arsenal, which is the match day 11 that you can see there. And when it stacks up, when you see those games where they play each other and the fact that Wolves were coming out a lot more offensive than we were, that is a very, very telling sign that of the two teams, whilst they employ very, let's face it, counter-attacking systems at times, Wolves have the potential to do really, really well. And you have to take into account the different types of players that these teams have. And I just think that under Nuno, his communication and the way that he has transformed that side, and you consider that at the start of the season, Wolves were off to a really, really poor start this season because of their participation in the Europa League, that now it's actually starting to reverse and they're actually starting to get back on track. They're doing a really, really good unbeaten run that they were on as well. And towards the last 4 games of this season so far, they've started to turn things around and get back to the Wolves that we saw last season that were doing really, really well in an attacking sense. And for me, if we just bring it back to talking about Nuno specifically as a manager, I don't see the point that you can turn around and say that he's a defensive coach, because he's not. He wasn't a defensive coach at Valencia, and when he came to Wolves, he turned that championship side into one that was really blowing other teams completely out of the park in the championship. That's what got them up into the Premier League. The championship is by far the most competitive league across Europe. It is a horrible league to be in. And it's so competitive because so many teams every single season can be up for promotion. You look at the likes of Bolton when they dropped. Bolton's probably a poor example because of their financial situation. But you look at Sunderland when they dropped. You look at other teams that have dropped so far down the table into League One. You look at Leeds when they dropped in, that were so dominant in the Premier League, they dropped to the Championship and have really been sat in there and really struggled to try and get out of that position. You look at Charlton, teams like that, they've only sort of got back up into the Championship now and have settled themselves a bit more. It is a horrible, horrible league to be in. And Nuno transformed that Wolves side with the help of some quality additions to get them out of that situation. So I'm very, very much of the opinion that Nuno would be a completely reasonable choice for Arsenal to take hold of. I don't agree with the people that say he's a defensive coach. I don't think he is. I think that he's a really, really good communicator of what he wants. I think he understands the connection between the fans and the team as well. And you can see that with the way he celebrates with the fans after games. I think he knows what he wants from a team. I think his players know what he wants, which is very, very important when you want to employ a system. And so therefore, I think that if Nuno was to come in, he would provide Arsenal with sort of that boost that we've needed for a while. Now, I can see some of your comments in the chat. We're going to go into those now and get some of those positive and negative comments about Nuno. Midnight says that Nuno is at his level at Wolves. Well, if that were the case, I don't think you'd be seeing the progression of that side that you've seen so far. If he was at his level, you would see him stagnating at that club. And that's why I think he is above that. Matrez says Nuno is perfect. We need a different style, which he would bring to the team. Again, I think people need to watch Wolves a lot more closely. It's a very, very blinkered, narrow-minded view to say that he's very similar to Emery, because he's not. He is not whatsoever similar to Emery with his style of play. He's so much more incisive, so much more wanting to get the ball to that main man up top, which it would either be, obviously, Alba or Laka. And I think that our wing-backs would definitely benefit a lot more from his coaching and a lot more from the style of play that he would want to employ. Arjun says Nuno likes to play high press and down the flanks, similar to Emery. It won't work with the players that we have. Again, you need to get out of this mindset that systems don't always... just because someone plays a specific system and just because some players are suited to a different type of system, it doesn't mean that those players can't be coached and adapt to that style of play if they are given the motivation and the correct coaching to do so. You look at different players that have played in a multitude of different systems and they have worked with that manager or with that coach or with that team. Just because a player may prefer one type of system to another, if you are a good enough coach and you're a good enough communicator of the ideas that you want to put across, a player can play well in different systems. And that works for plenty of players if they are of good high quality. And we've got plenty of world-class players in this team that can play in different systems. It just happened that under this system that Unai Emery is trying to deploy, which I don't think is high press, because we don't press teams anywhere near enough as we should do. If anything, we're a very passive side that allow teams to come onto us very, very highly. I don't think that we play a high press whatsoever at Arsenal. That's why teams are allowed so many shots on our goal during game, because we allow them to play the game that we want them to play. So in terms of high press, I don't agree with that at all. I don't think that we are playing a high press system. Raf Message says, I'm concerned. It's Raf in the show. Please do go follow Raf at Messi the Artist on Twitter. He says, I'm concerned that the main reason we are getting Nuno is because of his ties to Mendes. I'm not against Nuno, but I want the right man. Seems like we only want people that Raul is friends with. And that's a very fair point, Raf. We've seen connections with Luis Enrique, which obviously Raul knows very well. I don't want a situation where we only get connected to players because Raul is connected to them. That's why, and ultimately, I think that is what's happened, and it's really frustrating because you saw that with Sven Mislintat, that he left, he went, because effectively he wasn't getting what he needed. He thought Sven Mislintat thought he was going to come in and build up a squad and develop players and bring players into the team that would want to play for the shirt. Raul Sanllehi has gone down a very different route. He uses his plethora of contacts to get hold of players and bring them into the team. And as well as that, bring in other technical director and people that are behind the scenes and managers. And you've seen that with the managers that we're linked to. So, Raf, I completely take your point. I don't like the idea of it being just with the connections that Raul has. And whilst connections are definitely important, you need to be malleable. You need to be open to the idea of differences. You need to be the idea of different characters that maybe you're not familiar or comfortable with, trying to make a difference for your team. And that's certainly something that Raul is going to really, really struggle with to try and move forward. Bill Hemmett, thank you for the donation. He says, I don't care who the manager is as long as he organises the defence and doesn't accept players that doesn't give 100% for this team. I completely agree with you, Bill. The manager that needs to come in needs to be one that is a good communicator, that organises our defence, is obviously going to be the priority of whoever comes in. He needs to sort out the defensive side of the game and ultimately really, really puts forward those players that earn the shirt week in, week out. Really, really good point. Anonymous T says, Tom, what do you think about Jardim? I believe he won the league when Emery was at PSG. He did. Do not want him anywhere near this club. Jardim is just not the guy. You look at what he's done since going back to Monaco. I don't really see it. He's really, really struggling, burnt out during his time there. And I just don't, and that's the reason obviously he lost the job in the first place. I just don't see Jardim as a viable option. There's so many more proactive, really slick, good football philosophy managers out there, like Marco Rosa, like Julian Nagelsmann, like you could argue Mikel Arteta with the way that he's been tutelaged under. Is that a word, tutelage? I feel like when he's been playing or managing or coaching under someone else's tutelage is probably the right terminology. But under Guardiola, Arteta would definitely have got plenty of experience. We know from the leaks that come out that his ideas and his wing play with the Man City players has had a massive effect on their consistency and on their outlay. And so therefore, I just think that Jardim is not the guy anymore. He's not the one that we want. Bulgarian Gunnar says that Rafa is our best option right now. And Jeremiah is going to finish us off before we go on to the press conference. He says it's very dangerous. Some fans have the mindset any manager will do because if we don't get this decision right, we'll be in the same position again, which is an exceptionally good point. You don't want to employ the wrong manager. That's why I don't want Patrick Vieira at this club. And if you watch the managerial tactical breakdown, you'll see exactly why I don't want Patrick Vieira at this club. I didn't want Jose Mourinho at this club. Didn't want anywhere near this team. It would be an absolute car crash. It might work at Spurs. I pray to God it doesn't, and I don't think it will. I didn't want him anywhere near this club, and you need to make the right choice. And there are managers out there that definitely can be the right choice. Now, let's go on to talk about the next part of the video, which is, of course, breaking down Unai Emery's press conference. Now, we didn't really expect Unai Emery to be here at this point in time. So the fact he's doing another, which could be his last press conference, post or rather pre-match, is an interesting one. So let's read through what the Spaniard had to say. How important is tomorrow's game in building confidence? Emery says that we have two objectives tomorrow. One is the first in that competition at the Europa League, very important. We are doing a very good job in this competition, but we need to make sure of our position first, so our first position in the table. Our second objective is to win and take confidence, as well as to connect with our supporters to show our capacity and quality. The connection with the supporters is done. It's gone. It's dead. It's as simple as that. There is no connection. The attendance tomorrow night is going to be awful. Frankfurt supporters, I believe, are banned from the situation, so they won't even be in the ground. There's restrictions on where tickets can be sold because they're trying to avoid Frankfurt supporters buying tickets in the home end. I don't see it being a big crowd. It could be the lowest crowd in Arsenal Emirates attendance of a competitive fixture. It really, really could be that low. So it's going to be interesting. Now we're on to the meat and the gravy. He says, is the speculation over other managers on your mind? He says, my future is today and tomorrow, which is very short term, very, very short term thinking. And maybe you can read into that. Maybe he's just trying to say that all that matters is the next game. But just to say that today and tomorrow and after that, who knows? Could that mean that a decision has already been made and he's just been told that he needs to see out this game because it's his job? Then maybe that is true. He says, are you concerned over the talk about your future? He says, my job is to prepare the match tomorrow and to look at only the match tomorrow, thinking to show the best performance for the team. Also, we are playing at home with our supporters to transmit them our energy and game plan and doing well all the things we worked on here in the training ground. That is my only thought. Again, very, very short term. If you were confident, you would be talking in the long term. You would be thinking about what can we do in this game, which is going to improve and bleed into the next game and the following game and so on. It's very, very short-term thinking, and that's a very, very key thing to focus on. It says, the question is, how difficult is it for you to focus on the game amid the fans' reaction? He says, we know that our last match we were disappointed and the supporters also. Now only we are speaking here to prepare the match to come back with a good performance like we were doing before. My only focus is to show tomorrow our performance and connect with our supporters. We know our supporters are disappointed, but we have the opportunity tomorrow to come back at Reaction in the Emirates with our supporters to connect with them. It's really, really our focus. I know some teams are coming here fearless, playing fearless against us. We need also to be strong with our supporters. We need to connect with them to show them. My wish is tomorrow the supporters, every supporter helps the team and helps the players. We need them. In 90 minutes, I want to connect with them. Above all, my wish is connect with them. Their support to us, every player. That is the connection we need to show in our stadium. Again, it's a very generic Unai Emery response. It's a lot of adjectives about connecting with the fans, about trying to be fearless, although Granit Xhaka has come out in a post-game press conference or post-match interview and said that we played with fear. It's just not inspiring, is it? It just doesn't make you want to feel any different. Are you confident the players believe in you? Yes, of course. They show that, is what he says. I don't think they do. I don't think they showed that at all against Southampton. I don't think they're confident in what they need to do. I don't think they're confident in what is needed from them. I think that Martinelli, when he came on, and you could see that in the ground, and you could see that on the TV when it was shown that he was coming off the bench, didn't know what he wanted, or what Emery wanted. Just attack, try and score a goal was probably all he needed to know, but he still looked confused. Is this the most difficult moment in your career? As a coach, each moment in my career is difficult. This is a very good but very hard job. Above all, when, I believe that's meant to be, when you are winning, you feel the support for everybody. When you are losing and not winning like we are doing in the last matches, some doubts are coming. I believe in us. I believe in the players in that group. I know I am going to work very hard to come back to the performance and also to take the confidence we need now. I am looking forward to playing tomorrow. Each match is a very good opportunity. In the good moment, the bad moment, the most important for me is to show my work and to show our capacity. Really, each match is a good opportunity to do that. The problem is that every match that he's done, he hasn't shown that. He has not shown any of the things that he's talking about. Above all, the most important is to connect with the supporters. Again, this connection with the fans. He's really, really pushing this agenda that he needs to get that connection with the group. I don't see a connection happening anytime soon. And I think that it's naive to be continuously saying that. I think what he should have done is recognized it. He should have recognized the disconnect, talked about that, and maybe talked about what's needed to be done to do that connect or make that connection, rather than just saying we need to connect. That's not going to do anything. You need to act upon that. You need to say what needs to be done to achieve it. Our confidence depends a lot on how we can feel in our stadium with our supporters. That's not good. Saying that our confidence is down to fans and saying that any mention of fans in that sort of sense basically will make fans feel that they're being blamed. Saying that confidence in this team is low if they don't have the support of the side. Well, of course you don't have the support of all the fan base at the moment. We're absolutely down in the dumps because we don't know what we're trying to achieve. Our results are awful. How on earth is this stadium expected to have confidence when the way that we're playing is poor, the system isn't working? Other teams that have lost 9-0 in the league are coming to this side and nearly coming away with all 3 points. How are we supposed to feel confident in any way? You, as manager, and you, as the players, are supposed to breed confidence within the fan base, not the other way around. Teams are coming here playing fearless against us. This is the first thing we need to change, which isn't going to happen. We need to change. We need to be stronger. We need together. I know we need to show our supporters our capacity and skills. I know we are not doing that 100% with the players and the team. Tomorrow, we have a very good opportunity to change that. It's almost painful just reading through this. It really, really is. Something about isolation. I'm not really going to read this word for word now because it's just boring. It's really boring. Granit Xhaka, it's going to be an interesting one. He's in the group and he has the possibility to play. I hope every supporter supports him. Xhaka's comeback is going to be important for us. Whatever you think about Granit Xhaka, we haven't won a game since he left the side. I mean, it's an important stat. It's something that it should be highlighted. I don't think it's something you can gloss over. Have you lost the connection with the supporters? They are angry and disappointed as well. We are. Tomorrow we have a very good opportunity to change that. Again, just boring, same old, same old. My idea is to create a big atmosphere in the Emirates with every supporter. How are you going to do that? Tell us how you're going to do that. I don't understand. How are you going to do that? Each match here in the Emirates is very important for that. We need their support. The players more than me. They are playing, and on the pitch, they need to feel the backing. I don't know what he's trying to achieve. I don't get it. I really don't understand what he's trying to achieve there. Rampor says we need to stop the bleeding, and the only way to do that is to sack Emery and bring in a new manager. Darren Clifford says, I'm sorry to say I hope they lose if it means getting rid of him. When I listened to Arsblog, obviously, interview is still out on the channel. Please do go check it out. When I was listening to the Arscast extra with James and Andrew hit the nail on the head by saying that he didn't understand the feeling he had that when we equalised against Southampton, it was almost like, right, now there's an excuse to say that we've still not lost a home game all season, that this might continue. And the feeling of scoring an equaliser in the last minute against Southampton was no longer something that you were like, yes, finally, we clawed ourselves back. But actually, oh, crap, this means that we're going to have a little bit longer of this. And it's a confusing and horrible feeling to have. But I completely understand. Whilst I don't agree, and I don't want Arsenal to lose any game, ever, I have complete empathy for those that do, because I can understand the feeling, and I'm not going to criticise anymore. I used to. I'm not going to criticise and downtread those fans that want us to lose if it means Emery are gone, because I can have that empathetic feelings. I personally never want to see my club lose, no matter what, but I have the understanding of why some fans do, 100%. Grass Patch says, Tom, I would 100% take Nuno. I think he has done a magnificent job at Wolves. Our fan base can be on the snobby side when it comes to players as well. I agree with you. They can. I said it earlier. I think we can be arrogant as fans sometimes. I gave the Johnny Evans example as the perfect one. 1999 says he said his future is today and tomorrow, which means that they might have agreed to end his job after the Frankfurt game. Who knows? Who knows? Dean Wheeler says, Tom, have you ever thought about working on radio? I would enjoy listening on the drive home. Can think of one station of which you could replace their presenter. I don't know who you're talking about. I have done radio. I used to be on TalkSport 2 for a little bit with Hugh Wizzy when we were doing our build up to the World Cup. It was a lot of fun. If there's anyone who would like to put me in touch, radio. Imagine. I've got the face for it. Let's be honest. Face for radio all day long. Anyone wants to get in touch, please let me know. Canoe says, I never want Arsenal to lose, but I don't see us winning anytime soon. Pama Strikes says, just don't watch the game. Take a break. I did. It's not bad advice. It really, really isn't. Corey Burnside, let's scroll up and see some of your other comments. Arteta should replace Emery. He was a leader when he was here and will hopefully implement a possession style of play. Mason says, impressed with your channel and content. The American Jesse from Salzburg looks highly positive. Yeah, thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Mason. The Jesse Marsh tactical breakdown with Tom Midler from the other Bundesliga podcast was a really, really good insight into some of the managers that are less well known around the world. He's obviously got a lot more publicity with his time at Salzburg, the games against Napoli, against Liverpool in the Champions League. Eric Haaland has definitely boosted that profile. But he as a coach, Jesse Marsh, is someone that I would really, really would love to see at Arsenal. The style that he plays a 4-2-2-2 system, can sometimes merge into a diamond, which we know we have really not been fond of under Unai Emery. He plays this style, which is so inventive and gets the best out of all those players that I would love to see Jesse Marsh come in. I really, really would. Jeremiah mentions about his future being today and tomorrow. Again, we talked about that. It's really, really interesting to see about what we thought would happen. Ralph says, just give Freddie and Steve Bold the job and see what they can do because our season is already over. What do you think? I think if it was a case where Emery was told that he was gone and Ljungberg was taken over to the end of the season, I'd be okay with that. I would be okay with that. For me, the league is a write-off already this year. It's gone. The only possible hope for us, if any sort of positivity, I think, comes in the cup competitions, especially the Europa League, maybe the FA Cup. But I can't see anyone other than Liverpool or City or Chelsea winning that whatsoever. I just can't see it. So for me, FA Cup will be a completely different kettle of fish. But the Europa League is something that is achievable if we change the manager, because we're not going to beat those top teams. We're not going to beat probably Inter Milan at the moment that are coming down from a group with, I believe it was Barcelona and Dortmund. Is it Dortmund? I'm probably wrong. Who is it? Is it Dortmund, Inter Milan, Barcelona, and I think it might be Dortmund. Am I right? Please tell me. But I don't think they're going to get through that group with whoever they're with. And I think that Inter will drop, and they look good this season. I think they really look good this season, and it's interesting to see what they're doing under Conte. Is Conte? I'm right in saying that. It is Conte. And I think the likes of Martinez, Lautaro is doing really well. Lukaku has been a revelation for them this season. Who else on that side? Politano looks good. Who else did they sign? They lost Nainggolan. What's his name? Is it Sensi? Barella looks good. I think that there's some really, really good, strong talent in that side. That actually, for once, Inter don't look like blowing it all the time, which is a nice change for them in Serie A. I think they'll drop in and really, really challenge in that competition. I think that if you look at the other sides as well, Manchester United, I mean, they look better. It's really, really annoying to say, but they look a little bit better than us right now. I think that Oli will go. I think that Pochettino could become manager, and I think that will change them for sure. Stefano Sensi, it was, Ben. I knew it was Sensi. He looks a really, really good talent, Sensi. Rampus says, not only are we not going to finish in the top 4 this year, we are probably going to start losing our quality players who will not renew their contracts because they want championship football. It's a fair point. The contract situation is really, really worrying. I'm really, really concerned about that. And if Emery stays, I cannot see Laka and Alba taking over at this club. I just not taking over, but continuing at this club. I really, really can't. Abraham says, cheers for the reaction vid. Club's been a somber mood all week. No problem, mate. Anonymous says, I forgot about Sanchez. Inter Milan. He's out to the new year, I believe, with a knee injury. I believe it's a knee injury. So, but I don't think he was doing that much when he was there. I think he scored a couple. He scored on his debut, didn't he? But yeah, I mean, he is the worst thing he did was leave Arsenal. That was his worst decision of his career, and you can see that it has completely backfired on him. Completely backfired on him. We're going to wrap things up there. Thank you ever so much for tuning in, people. I really, really appreciate it. Please do go check out some of the managerial tactical breakdowns that we've done on the channel if you want to get some really good insight and education into some of the managers that are being linked to us. Ten Hag, I've covered with some of the boys over at the Eredivisie podcast. We're going to have that out ASAP. But if things change in the managerial senses, we could get very, very imminent news about the manager. Tomorrow's game is going to be really, really interesting. I think we're going to draw. I don't think the players are going to want to play for him. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. And I think after that, surely, fingers crossed, surely he has got to go. Please, if you've enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. Please subscribe to the channel if you're on YouTube. Turn those notifications on. We'll be live straight after the game tomorrow for our Raw Reactions show, so you can tune in and discuss the game with us then. So make sure those notifications are turned on. And I'll see you again tomorrow. As always, somehow, up the Arsenal.